On this episode of the John 1911 Podcast, the Grenadier is here, the Scar is gone. Ian McCollum throws in the towel, and is the Army about to go 6-5? Well, welcome back, everybody. It's episode 385 of the John 1911 Podcast. Today is Sunday, October 19th at 10:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It has been a minute since we published an episode. Been a busy couple of weeks. I had some traveling to do and then had some stuff going on around here. I am in Ohio right now. This episode of the podcast, I don't know if it'll get published tonight. Most of you will probably end up hearing this tomorrow. It's late for Grandpa, and I have an appointment. I have a meeting early in the morning. So after I record this, I got to do some basic editing, really just, do whatever and get it published. And that takes about an hour, and I'm going to probably end up going to bed. So you guys, as far as you're concerned, this would be Monday for all of you. So I guess we'll just get into it. If it isn't obvious that this is going to be a solo episode. Hold on, let me clear my throat. Sorry about that. The rumors are true. You can tell by some of the photographs. If you have been following our social media, I have purchased an Ineos Grenadier, and it's probably fair to say that 99% of people in the United States have no idea what that is. That is not an exaggeration. It is a truck. I call it a truck. I call it a truck. In America, we would call it an SUV. In England, which is where it was designed, they call it a station wagon. And in France, where it is built, I guess you would call it expensive. I don't know. So I don't know what they call it in France. So it is we'll have pictures. This isn't going to be the Grenadier episode or anything like that, but we are going to be doing more content, outdoor type of stuff. I've always felt that our outdoor section of the website has kind of been lacking. We did have some hunting, and so that was kind of some of the motivation for the Grenadier. But that's automatically going to bring up some questions as to, other decisions that were made with vehicles. So if we've had some questions on social media, no, I didn't get rid of the Porsche. I still have the Porsche. No, I didn't get rid of the Tundra. I still have the Tundra. The Porsche just rolled 45,000 miles. I put some miles on that car since we bought it. I bought it with 10,700 miles. Did buy it used. It's a 2015. The Tundra is in the shop right now. The day I went to go pick up the Grenadier, the Tundra, I had to go in for an oil change, scheduled maintenance. It's right at, I don't know if it's at, is it 250, 260? Maybe I don't think it's 280. I can't remember what it is. I'm kind of car blind right now. But it was just the oil regularly scheduled oil change. And it's like, well, here we come. So obviously oil, tire rotation, and all that, but and whatever the scheduled maintenance is, but they discovered the water pump was leaking quite a bit, and that definitely had to be addressed. It was leaking enough that it was going to be had to be dealt with. I never really defer maintenance. What I tell the company, Toyota, where I take it is Toyota corporate, is basically, if you can find it, fix it. So but then they came back and said that the valve covers need to I guess the seals, but the valve covers got to be replaced. So last I checked, they had to order some parts. The vehicle will probably be ready probably Tuesday. It's over 20 hours of labor on this job. It's a $7,000, $6,900. We're at $7,000 on this. So it's a pretty hefty bill for a 2013 truck, but it's a truck that realistically could last forever. Still keeping that truck. There's no reason to get rid of it. Definitely, use it as a range truck, and I may still even use it quite a bit as a daily driver. We'll see how it compares to the Grenadier, but the conservative thing would be, there are things I can do with the Grenadier, especially off-road, that I can't do with a truck, and there's things I can do with the Porsche that I can't do with the Grenadier. So it kind of works out where they all kind of sit in a constellation, um, complementing each other, not in opposition to each other. And it also spreads, I can spread the miles out a little bit. Not that I'm that concerned about mileage, um, but one of the things the Grenadier enables me to do is the truck is, I've been pretty rough on the Tundra, and going places in public with the Tundra, I mean, it cleans up nice, but it's still got some bashed in corners and, some torn up things in it, and all that. Like I can't really put clients in it, like even if I clean it, like, and just driving back and forth to the East Coast. And, it where the Grenadier, one of the appeals of the Grenadier was, I can do some stuff with it off road, but it has that kind of that British Range Rover kind of look that, I can get it detailed and I can valet it at a 5-star restaurant. I could put clients in it or put people in it and, go somewhere or take it. And it seems it's like a nice vehicle. Like I really don't have a nice vehicle for more than like one other person. So the Grenadier made sense. That was kind of some of the motivation for why I was getting it. But I guess I'll answer this and then we'll get off the Grenadier because people are going to want to know. It is a 2025. It is a Fieldmaster. It is white. I guess they call it Scottish white. And it does have, for those wondering, even though it's a Fieldmaster, it has all the lockers. So it's got center lock, front lock, and rear differential lock. So it kind of is an analog to a Jeep Wrangler. The best way I can kind of describe that. We'll start doing some videos with the Grenadier, and I'll even do some specs and rundowns. It's got a lot of, not only does it have a lot of options on it, it has a lot of accessories on it. And the price that's going to come out of that is going to be quite shocking. But it's kind of where we ended up, and we'll follow up with that with more videos later. So what else has been going on we have around here? So I have had we're kind of rushing to get some projects kind of wrapped up, for the change of the weather. Kind of the last of the construction. Really, the construction is done. I promise you it's done. We have been shooting more, getting the range up and running. We've had groups coming through, people coming in. As a matter of fact, I'm expecting Doc this week. He'll be on the property doing some rifle work and kind of catching up with him. Really haven't seen Doc in a while. I've been busy and he's been busy, and he spends his winters in Arizona, and then he spent, he was traveling in Africa. So I got to catch up with Doc before he, goes away and goes back to Arizona for the winter. So, kind of that going on. We had I don't know what the final tonnage is on the gravel, but we've had another 20-ton load of gravel dropped on the range. This is a much smaller size of gravel. I think it might be called 73, if I can remember. It's the smallest we can get down to dust, and I'm going to use it as a finish layer next to the barn. So it'll lock in over the winter with the freeze thaw and things getting cold, but it'll make it really smooth, so easy to walk out there. And I'm going to set up the fire pit out there. So I've got to get that layer down. Got to get that layer down, before we can, get the fire pit down. And it's definitely time to get the fire pit running. Other issues that have been going on. Some of you may have noticed it's been, a little while since you've seen this. We had some problems with the mailing list. Some of how do I explain this? So we had the mailing list was sending some duplicate stuff, and then it wasn't updating. It wasn't even, it would send the reason it would send you a duplicate email wasn't because it was trying to send the duplicate email. The mailing list, the newsletter that comes out on Tuesdays and Saturdays, wasn't reading the website for the new post. Because what happens is the newsletter, when the newsletter you get in your inbox, and if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, please go to john1911.com and sign up for it. Like, come on now. We don't sell or share it. We only send you emails twice a week. We don't assemble that newsletter. Like, I don't put together, it's like a newspaper guy and setting the typeset and the font, whatever. It's set up as an RSS feed, really simple syndication for the technical term for the computer people. And it has a basic format, and it looks at the website probably about 3 to 5 minutes before it gets sent to you. If it sees anything new in the code, i.e. publications, whether it sees one post or if it sees 5 or 7, it'll take a 7, and it'll take a snapshot of those, drop them in order in the RSS feed, and then send it to your email. Well, if it doesn't, there was a technical issue where it wasn't picking up the new stuff. And the long story short, why it wasn't picking up the new stuff, and I haven't really discussed this too much, is the website has just been getting hammered, and to the point where our IT people are like, what is going on with the website? Like, are we under attack? Is there something? No, it's just traffic. There was a theory that this traffic was coming from some security stuff that's set up, to keep people from doing DDoS attacks. Again, I don't want to get too technical on board. That's not you're listening to this podcast. A DDoS attack is probably not, you're not the customer for that conversation, which is fine. But the traffic to the website was so astonishingly heavy, and it's been going on now for about 2 months. It started in August, and we couldn't really figure out what it was. And it just turns out it's organic. Something has changed. I don't think we've changed. I mean, if anything, we've kind of struggled over the past, say, 12, 18 months to get the amount of content that I would want out, shooting content out. I mean, I'm personally, as the editor, am not happy with the content schedule or the production volume. So, I mean, it can't be that we're doing a better job. I think what's happened is, at least temporarily, is, I don't want to say who. I think it's a combination of a couple of different companies, but some of the big tech companies have decided to take their foot off of our necks as far as what will show up in social media and what will show up, in organic searches and, all that kind of stuff. So I think, I'm not going to say this is the new normal, but we've had to make some adjustments to the website and not realizing that it was also affecting the newsletter. And so that was my fault. I apologize. It's under control. Please bear with us. Newsletter should be running fine. And as a matter of fact, I know it is. If you think you missed a couple of stories on the website, as a matter of fact, every one of you, if you didn't go to the website and just use the newsletter, you missed about 5 stories. So, as the editor of the website, that's extremely frustrating for me. It's like, we're in the publishing business. Like, what's going on here? Like, it's like having a magazine and not mailing it to people. It's like, does it count? Well, so got that under control. Hopefully things have settled down, and thank you all for the interest and the traffic. And those of you that are new, go to our website, go to our email newsletter, go to Facebook, go to Instagram, go to YouTube. You can even go to Vimeo. I'll touch on that in a minute in a reference to Ian McCollum. And, welcome to John 1911. So let's see, other range stuff going on. We have added another shooting bench to the property that'll be showing up under the what we call the picnic shelter on the rifle range. I bought benches and I covered this on the website, but again, a lot of you didn't see this story because it didn't go out in the newsletter. I bought all these benches for the standard shooting positions on the rifle range, but we also have this legacy, what I call picnic shelter, and I have an old bench that I had built by hand that's under that shelter, and it's been there for a while. And it's looking a little worse for wear, but it's fine. It's under a shelter, but it may not be the most level bench at this point, and all this other kind of stuff. And so it doesn't matter. I buy all these benches at these set 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 yard shooting positions, and everybody wants to sit under the shelter. And it's like, well, F me. It's like, so there's this kid that I have, he might be listening to this. I found him on Facebook. I think his name is, I think his name is Andrew, and he is way out in Indiana, and he is actually, I think, near, if you know where Mustatock, so I think he's in Sunman, Indiana. What he does is he's like a little woodworker guy, runs it out of his house, and he makes shooting benches, and I think he does other tables and chairs or whatever. He makes shooting benches, and they're pretty nice. But I could tell he got some of these designs off the internet, and there's problems with some of these designs for these shooting benches off the internet. And I bought enough shooting benches off of him that I was able to give him some advice and feedback, and he made some changes. And so this last bench that we bought had these changes. So I'm real happy with that. It's just a little bit bigger, bigger guns, longer guns, like a 50 BMG with a bipod on it is a big, long gun. And, you got to have enough of a runway to stick that rifle out there and have it still be on the bench. But what's interesting about Andrew's benches is he uses Trex for his tabletop. So he builds the entire bench out of treated lumber and uses the 6x6s and all that, which is cool. But then he uses Trex for the top of the bench and for his seats. And that was the one reason why I decided this guy who's way out of the middle of nowhere, we load up the truck, and, he takes his tractor and drops them in. And, that's how we end up with these benches. So we actually have a link. We have a post about him or about his product. And I have a screen grab with his name and information on Facebook, so you could look his stuff up. Again, if you're 1,000 miles away, you're not going to be buying a shooting bench from some kid in Ohio or in Indiana, because you're not going to have it shipped. Like, it's just not worth it. But if you're within maybe a couple hours of, say, central Indiana, I would say, yeah, central Indiana, maybe it's worth checking this kit out if you want something that's going to sit out in the sun and the weather in the winter all year with the Trex top. I don't know, we got pictures of it on the website. I've spent quite a bit of money buying his benches. Okay, it's been a while. There's been a lot that's kind of transpired, and I want to get into it because I've been holding my tongue a little bit, and some of it I just kind of got by me, and I wanted to address it here. Let's talk about some industry news. The first one is that I had missed, because I don't really consume that much, like, standard, I would call, like, YouTube kind of stuff. Not that I don't consume YouTube. Most of my YouTube consumption literally happens while I'm driving, because mostly I listen to it. Then if there's something I need to see, I can turn and look at it, but most of the time I just listen to it. Well, many of you are familiar with a YouTuber named Hickok45. I think his name is Greg Kinman is his real name. And Hickok's been around a long time. And Hickok45 broke his leg, and he's been injured. I guess it was maybe in July, August. And it turns out, and he's made reference to this before, because I found out about it, and I did watch his video telling a story about how he broke his leg. And he for the best I can tell, is he rolled a Harley Davidson trike. I assume it was a Harley. I can't recall if he said it was a Harley. But for some reason, I'm thinking it was definitely a trike. And he did it here, basically in Cincinnati. Him describing where he did this and how he did it. And I think he mentioned maybe the police department or the EMS department. I was able to look up. I know exactly where he was. I know the traffic. I know the intersection. I know exactly what he did. Hickok was around me, and he rolled a trike in a roundabout because he forgot, because he's used to riding two-wheel motorcycles back in the day, that a trike, you can't lean it because it's a trike, not a bike, and he rolled it, which was always the problem back in the day with the three wheelers, the motorized three wheelers that you would see on farms and recreational areas. And so he rolled this thing, brand new trike, I guess, and it landed on him and broke his leg. And they had to pull it off of him. And so it's very. I mean, he's lucky he's not dead. And so prayers out to Hickok 45. You can tell he just feels terrible because he wrecked his buddy's brand new tricycle, motorcycle, trike. And I just was surprised that he did this around here. He did this not that far from John 1911 corporate headquarters, not that far from John 1911 gun range, and I just had no idea. So maybe I need to pay more attention in life. Maybe everyone else did. I mean, hell, for all I know, it was covered on the firearms media, but maybe I'm the last person to know. So prayers out to Hickok 45, kind of shocking. I'm, old, I'm getting older. I mean, hell, if I'm 54, I mean, how old is old Hickok? I mean, he's got I don't know, is he in his 60s or is he in his 70s or, I don't know, but prayers to Hickok. Sorry to hear about your injury. Hope he does okay. Hope he's back to making videos and content and kind of gets back to it. He looked a little shook up in his video explaining what happened. So this next story kind of got blew up, and Kraken had published something. I think it was Kraken on our social media on Facebook. Lena Michalik, and Max Michel have left SIG and the SIG shooting team, and it was about 2 weeks ago, and it was right before I left town, and I just did a quick search before getting onto the pod just to be like, well, what's the story here? Is there any update or whatever? And as far as I can tell, there doesn't seem to be any update. Like I would have assumed, well, I would have assumed two things, but we're going to go with the first thing. It's like, well, Lena Michalik and then Max Michel. Max Michel was their team captain. I mean, I think he's been with them for 20 years. I mean, Max Michel's been with SIG forever. And it's like, well, why is he leaving? It's like, is it the 320 issue or whatever? Or it's like, there are rumors about maybe there's some falling out, or, I can't keep doing this, SIG. We can't take the 320. Like, I can't, I'm not a shill. Like, everyone kind of, projected whatever they wanted to believe onto this story. But I figured within a couple of weeks, it'd be obvious. What I thought would be to me is it seems like to me maybe SIG might be shutting down their shooting team. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case. I haven't heard anything, because I figure if Lena's out and Max is out within a couple of weeks, Horner and the other person, I mean, I figured they would have shut that all down. So I don't know what's going on there. Maybe it's I don't know. Like is it are they leaving to flourish elsewhere to make more money? Are they leaving the sinking ship like rats, before it all goes down like the Titanic? Were they fired, because maybe they wouldn't carry water on something, or who knows? I don't know. I have no idea. So I figured within a couple of weeks we'd hear something, and we hadn't. So you tell me if you have any update as to what's going on with SIG. Again, I'm not looking into getting into like too much of like this gossipy, like, this is what I'm about to say didn't happen, but I'm just using it as a hypothetical example. So like, if it turns out that Lena and Max had an affair and like they had to fire him because, it's like an HR thing, and what, it's like, okay, that's fine. Just, that's what it was. I'm ready to move on. I just am curious. I'm more interested in if there's some major structural differences, or if there's promotional differences from SIG what was the motivation for this change, and it'll help me as a business person kind of understand what they're thinking and what they're planning on, and where they're going to end up in the future. So I was super, super curious about that. The next one, and this one kind of surprised me, but I guess it really shouldn't have. I had seen something a few weeks ago from a YouTube channel, and it was the only thing on the internet that I could see. I can't remember who it was, but basically, Ian McCollum has his History of Weapons and War, which is a pay-per-view, a paywall app service, and it was limited to 10 gun channels that had to be invited. Like, so you couldn't, like John1911 couldn't just publish there. Like, not that we would want to, and not that they would want us to, but it was an invitation only group, and then they would sell advertising, or they would sell memberships. I don't know if they did advertising or not. It's hard to make money on that level without running advertising. I can tell you that. But the idea was that it was Ian McCollum's idea that this is going to be his safe harbor to get away from YouTube, because Forgotten Weapons as an entity, if you look at Forgotten Weapons as a body of work, like all his videos, they are, and all these guys, they are so vulnerable to YouTube. It's insanity from a business perspective. Like, just one day, I mean, it's my understanding, and I don't know if this is true, but it's my understanding, and I have no reason to believe it's not true, that you see these YouTube channels that have 1 million, 2 million, I don't know, 3 million. I know at least, say, 2 million subscribers, and they can't get anybody on the phone at YouTube. Like, think about this. Like, there are these dudes, mostly dudes, that are, they've given up their jobs, their careers. They've decided it's so successful that they are, quote, content creators in the real sense that this is how they pay for everything. This is how they cover their nut. And they have over 1 million subscribers. This is their full-time job. They're grown adults. They're professional. They're not yahoos out there, blowing up stuff and running stuff over and making all these crazy videos. They're doing real things, or respectable things. They can't get a single person on the phone at YouTube to even just talk about the weather, or just even get a feel for anything. Like, that's insane. I mean, just from a business talk about, there's a problem in business where what can happen is, if you're so dependent on one customer, that you don't really have a business. Your business can be taken away from you in a heartbeat. Well, I mean, these content creators, they're so funneled in through YouTube that they're so used to being, like, Ian McCollum is so big and so well regarded worldwide. Again, it's a small community relative to 8 billion people in the world. But within the gun community, even worldwide, Gun Jesus is probably about as big as it gets. And if he were to lose his YouTube channel, he'd have to live off of his website. And I know that he neglected that website for a long, 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 long time, because that's how he started, as a website. But YouTube took off. And so there was always this reason to want to try to diversify, or once, they're making real money, that they need to do something. So he started History of Weapons and War. Went around and decided, we don't want these schlocky gun channels that are, taking roofing nails and shoving them into a shotgun and, shooting them at pumpkins. They were doing, you can't see my air quotes, but they're doing real gun stuff. And maybe it's real history, or maybe it's real whatever, which is fine, because that's more what I'm interested in. And long story short, after 2 years, Ian McCollum comes out and announces that it's over. I think it was as of October 1st, History of Weapons and War had shut down. And then everything was quiet. I was like, okay, I saw this channel announce that History of Weapons and War is closed, but then I didn't see anything else for a number of weeks. And then while I was traveling, I saw Ian McCollum come out and say that he is now, Forgotten Weapons is now on Pepperbox. And he had announced that, and also in that video, that the other people in History of Weapons and War, the other 9, I don't know if it's Ian McCollum plus 9 or if it was Ian McCollum plus 10. I honestly don't know, but let's just say 10. He had expressed a hope or that the other creators would go to Pepperbox, and it turns out it's apparently not dissimilar from the model that History of Weapons and War had. You had to be invited, and I don't know how many of those channels are going to end up being invited to Pepperbox. I didn't even know what the hell Pepperbox was, so I looked it up, and then apparently Pepperbox is, and it's not clear to me either because I see conflicting information, and I'm not interested in that deep of dive of it on the business side. But I guess it's, there's the, and I've seen these guys because it shows up in my shorts and in my social media. It's Brandon Herrera, some guy who's called the Fat Electrician. I don't know who he is, but I guess he does history. But he's the Fat Electrician. Like, I see shorts, I just see some stuff. And a couple other people that I kind of maybe might recognize, and I guess they're doing this Pepperbox thing, or somehow they're associated with it. But apparently Pepperbox is not a bunch of like, quote, real gun stuff. Like, Pepperbox apparently has quite a lot of the entertainment, what I would call the what do you call it? Who's the guy who retired? Not Thunder Ranch. He retired too, but not Thunder Ranch. Demolition Ranch. One of the issues, like, Demolition Ranch was very successful, but let's be real, Demolition Ranch kind of petered out because the Matt from Demolition Ranch wasn't really living his life. I mean, he was, but he kind of wasn't. He's putting on a persona. He's putting on a show, and let's go and blow up Lieutenant Dan again. Let's go. How many whatevers can go through a whatever, at whatever, it just, you do that for 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 years. And you're just, what it reminds me of? This is exactly a corollary to this. I wish I could remember the guy's name. So there was a big hair rocker guy, like from the 80s. There were a ton of these groups, and some of them became quite successful, like Whitesnake, Metallica, and then there were others that were kind of one-hit wonders. And I'm going to name this song because I know the song, and I can't even remember the name of the band, and I can't remember the guy and all this, but I'm going to name the song. And if it turns out that this guy is like super important to you and I'm shitting on Big Hair Rock, I'm not trying to, but I'm going to prove the point. There was a band, and the song was called Cherry Pie. And this, I remember the song. She's my cherry pie, and like this, all the innuendos of this, right? And this song was a huge hit. It got a lot of play. I don't know if it was a hit, but it got a lot of play. And I remember seeing a video. So the kid, I look back now because I'm 54. The kid at the time, he was probably my age, a little bit older than me. Singing the song, he's living the rock and roll lifestyle. He's 20, 21, 22. She's my, and wearing the spandex and, blowing off the pyrotechnics and going around the world on the road, and the groupies in the bus, whatever, which is fine. And then it's time for the next album. And then it's time for the next album. And then it's time for the next album. And then it's over. And then you're going around and, you're trying to get, do concerts at the casinos, and you're trying to, then you end up having to do concerts at the Indian reservations. And next thing you know, you're doing concerts at the country fair, and you're 45 and you're 55, and the only song that anybody wants you to play is She's My Cherry Pie. And I remember watching a video of this guy talking about this, and he was like, he basically said, I hate that fucking song. And it's the only song he's known for, because it gets old. Because like he got pigeonholed into something in a moment in time when he was 21. And it's like now he's, I don't know, he could be pushing 60, and he has to go around and pretend that he's 21 singing this song, and he just hates himself. And I think a lot of these YouTubers that have to put on these personas, they run into this problem. And it's the arc of any music industry person. It's the arc of, of any television show, and it's the arc of a lot of these YouTube channels. So, unfortunately, it appears, I'm going somewhere with this. Unfortunately, it appears that a lot of the idea that you can have this great success, sounds like bored, great success, with, say, high-minded gun content probably doesn't really exist. If you end up going too high with the highs, you end up going too low with the lows. If you're more of an even keel, you're just kind of doing what you want to do because you're just being true to yourself. Maybe you'll never be cherry pie guy, but then again, at the end of the day, maybe you'll never end up as cherry pie guy at 50 or 60 hating yourself because you're not as popular as you were 30 years ago. And I think a lot of these YouTube channels are facing this exact same problem, like, is Ian McCollum going to end up as cherry pie guy? Like, I don't think so. I think Ian McCollum would probably transition to something else, or, Forgotten Weapons, and some of these other ones, like, CN Arsenal. They're trying to rebrand, they become more of these recognized subject matter experts. And I think there's some interesting room in there, but a lot of this stuff where people are, how much tannerite can you blow up, or how much, it's kind of the same thing over and over and over again. I think a lot of these YouTube channels are not businesses. They're not viable. You do it because you want to do it, or you do it because you have another plan, or maybe you do it because you just want to shoot guns and have fun, which is what John1911 does. Does John1911 make money? As an entity, John1911 does not make money. I mean, there's not a secret. I'm not even going to try to pretend like, oh, we're making so much money. We're not making any money. If you knew how much John1911 cost to keep running, you would pass out. And I don't have a problem with it because I enjoy it. I'm having fun. Some people get to be astronauts. I get to be, I guess, the editor of John1911. Like, it's fine. It's no big deal. Like, there's a lot of things I'm not going to get to be in life. So, it's interesting to see History of Weapons of War. I thought that one was probably going to possibly make it. I don't know if there's going to be an alternative to a YouTube, because that's where everybody is. Part of the reason, like, we publish to YouTube because it's a way to reach new people. I'm not trying to build a YouTube channel. I'm not saying if you're new here and you've discovered us, and because obviously a bunch of you are discovering our website now for some odd reason, that I'm not saying don't go to our YouTube channel. Absolutely go to our YouTube channel. If that's where you're going to watch the videos, go there. Subscribe. I'd love to see the subscriber numbers. We just broke, I think, 3,500 subscribers, like yesterday. Or maybe it's 45. I don't know, whatever it is. I'll check real quick because I can just push a button. It is, I'm sorry, 5,400 subscribers. So I was, 40% wrong. Go there, do that. I use YouTube. If YouTube turns off our social media, turns off our YouTube channel, I mean, it's like, I'm not going to be happy about it, but it's like, well, okay, I'll appeal it. I know I'll lose the appeal, and very quickly, like within 30 seconds after losing the appeal, it'll be John1911 chapter 2 or whatever, and just start publishing the videos. See, because the goal is not to grow a YouTube channel, the goal is to get in front of people that want to see our content, and eventually get in front of people that didn't know we exist and get them to our website. That was kind of the difference that, and I had asked, let me say this. I had a very, I'm not friends with Ian McCollum. So I like Ian McCollum. I mean, like, I like him as much as any of you like him. I mean, I respect him. I like him. I enjoy his content. I think he's I'm a big fan. It's a channel that I continuously consume. But I've had some contact with Ian McCollum, but it's very minimal because, I don't try to, whatever. But I remember I reached out to Ian McCollum when we first started John1911 because I just had a question that was burning my ass. And this was 10 years ago. And the question was, I was like, because at the time, I don't know if he had 300,000 subscribers. He was a big deal on YouTube. And I was like, dude, like, even back then, there were complaints about how YouTube treated gun content, how YouTube treated gun channels, and the throttling and the age restrictions, and what was considered changing the rules arbitrarily on different timelines. Suppressors are fine; they're not fine. Machine guns are fine; they're not fine, and all that kind of nonsense. But it became clear that, YouTube long term wasn't going to be viable. Like, it wasn't going to be, look, I don't know. I mean, viable is not the right way to say it. 20 years from now, Ian McCollum could still be on YouTube with 1 billion subscribers. He could be. So was that a viable channel? I don't know. That's up to him. It depends on how much work versus how much reward he gets out of it, either financial or personal. But it's like, I wouldn't want to spend the next 20 years every day waking up and wondering, am I out of a job today? Or is everything I've built over? And so John1911 came along late enough in the game because we weren't early adopters. I kind of looked at all this stuff and I'm like, well, we could do this. I mean, we got all kinds of stuff going on, guns and cops and hunting, all kinds. We don't even successfully publish a tenth of the stuff that goes on around here. And I'm like, we got all kinds of stuff that we could share with people that could go on. I think what people find interesting. But I was like, I'm not going to put all this effort and work into a YouTube channel, into posting these videos on the internet just to wake up one day and have the shit turned off. So I reached out to Ian McCollum, and, he wasn't like, we're not competitors. And it was just like, hey, we're nobody. But I do know something about some of this stuff. And I asked him, I said, why aren't you using a third-party service and hosting all these videos, to use these? Why aren't you hosting all your own videos on your website? Because I went to Ian McCollum's website, I went to the Firearms Blog website, I went to all these other websites, and one thing I noticed Ian McCollum was doing, and it made sense to do this, is every time Ian McCollum would publish a video, he would upload it to YouTube, and then, everyone would see it. Then he would go to his website, and he would have a post and or an article or write-up on whatever was going on in the video, and then he would take the source code and embed the source code from YouTube, and he would plug that into his video. So you could go to Ian McCollum's website, and you could MG42 machine gun, and click on that, and you could read the article, and there's a video, and you could watch the video, but the video was actually on YouTube, but you could watch it on Ian McCollum's website. But the problem is, that's every day you're doing that, and you're building this up and you're building it up. And all of a sudden YouTube could decide to come in behind you and turn that video off. And it's now affecting your website. And I reached out to Ian McCollum, and I didn't quite say it like this, but I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, why aren't you using a video service or hosting your own videos? they could just turn you off, and then like you're trashing your website. And Ian's response was, he said, YouTube is so big that they're never going to go away. And he said, I don't want to pay to host my own videos because what I'm proposing isn't free. And at the time, and it's not that much money, it cost me like this. Look, this is something you could do at home. Like all these people that cry and complain, I got bad news for you. Okay, this is going to sound real bad, but we got to talk about this. Like this history of weapons of war being shut down, I think should be considered as kind of a watershed moment for the gun tube community to like get your head out of your own asses here a little bit. Like you can't have it both ways, okay? And I'm going to use Ian McCollum as an example, and I'm not ripping on Ian McCollum because Ian McCollum, from a YouTube and gun channel perspective, is very successful. As a matter of fact, he makes money, and he's doing it as his career. Everything you see over here is not coming from the John1911 website. John1911 website costs money. John1911 website, probably everything that I have spent in all of John1911 cost more money than Ian McCollum is making on Forgotten Weapons. I promise you this is true. So who's the retard in this conversation? So let's just keep it real. But with that being said, I want to give you guys some economic numbers here. It cost me to host videos on my website. This is just a video. This isn't the web hosting. This is because I pay for a service called Vimeo. And Vimeo hosts it, and they do the back end on, because there's a lot of Vimeo is a dedicated video hosting website. It's a business to business focused service, and they host videos for businesses because videos can take up a lot of space. So you need server space. And so they also provide things like embed codes and all this other kind of technical stuff. So you can do stuff, and they'll do stuff. So people that make movies will use Vimeo to host their videos, their movies. And so they could sell memberships, or they can do super high quality because you can pay for all this stuff. It cost me a year to host every video that I've ever published for John1911, whether Marky's in it or Kraken's in it or anybody else is in it. It cost me about $700 a year. It used to be about $600. It was $500 and $600 and $700 a year. So let me give you some perspective here. If you're really serious about your video content, if you're so serious about your video content that it's your fucking job, okay? And I'm not talking to me and McCollum here. I'm talking to a lot of other companies, a lot of other channels. And it's so serious, this is how you make your living, or this is a big thing, but you won't spend the equivalent of a Glock every year to make sure your videos don't come down off the internet. What are you doing? Like, what's the point? Like, how serious is this? Ian McCollum at the time he literally was like, I'm not spending money to host videos. This is the guy who decided to use the same service that I'm using, Vimeo, because that's what he uses it for, to do history of weapons and war. I can literally take my Vimeo account that I've used for 10 years, and ever since John1911 as a website came online, I have always used Vimeo. I have never, ever used YouTube as a host for videos. I publish videos on YouTube, and if YouTube deletes a video, doesn't affect my website at all. And I could easily pay to create an app, and I could put John1911 as an app on all of your phones if you download the app. Do I want to do that? Not right now. I don't think it's really viable. Would I do it in the future if something happens or things change? Like if the website is becoming busier and busier, maybe the website's getting busier because something happened. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's because these other things have gone out of business. I doubt that's the case. I'm almost in real world terms. I know that's not the case, but I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not looking to do it. But what I'm looking to do is I know no matter what happens out there, you know, I'm seeing reports now that Facebook is starting to crack down on gun content again. Like people just posting pictures of guns and it's like, this isn't safe and you're selling guns. Where they're supposed to be after Trump got reelected, that they had all let up on it. Now here we are. It's been 10 months. Or it's been 11 months since the election, and all of a sudden the shit's starting to crack down again. And you think by 2028 or midterms, 2026, that this isn't all going to get all crappy again? Sure it is, because nothing's going to change. And so no matter what happens, I know John 1911 will be there. I think Ian McCollum is probably, I would imagine, I haven't gone the Forgotten Weapons in a while, but I would imagine he has probably spent a lot of time. The History of Weapons of War account that he has with Vimeo is probably still active on the back end, and every Forgotten Weapons video that's been uploaded and tagged and descriptions and everything done, because when I upload a video, I upload it to Vimeo and I got to handle it on the back end, then I insert it on the website. I guarantee you Ian McCollum is taking all those videos and he's still leaving those on his website. He's not going to delete them just to re-upload them unless he's foolish enough to at least not even if he's going to completely get rid of Vimeo. And I know I'm kind of rambling, but I'm not really certain. Everybody's waiting in the gun community for somebody else to quote put them on. And that's a ghetto phrase, that's a poverty phrase. The put them on. They're waiting to get the call. Like, man, I wish just somebody would make an alternative to YouTube. Man, I wish just, we could have someplace. Well, you're gonna have to make your own shit. Like this idea of, instead of waiting for somebody to make you famous, or instead of waiting for somebody to give you permission to be professional, just start being professional. Just start doing it. Just start being the thing. Start doing the thing. And quit waiting for these network effects and for people to come and like make you, somehow anoint you as like you've made it now. Because I don't think the model works for the gun community. I think your best bet is to build a social media property that you own in whatever way that you see that would be, and then if you want to leverage against it, or whether you just want to enjoy it, but no one can take it from you. That's what you want to try to do. And unfortunately, we've seen it with Full 30. We've seen it with Float Plane, Utreon. I don't even know which ones are still up or not up. I can't even remember all these things. Now it's History of Weapons and War. I mean, you're going to have to try to do your own thing. You're going to have to be no one. The ultimate irony, and I'm going to get off this, but the ultimate irony is one of the basic tenets and concepts in the firearm self-defense community is no one's coming to save you. But all these gun content creators are sitting around waiting for someone else to save them. You're going to have to save yourselves, brother. Okay, we off that. So now we're going to pick up speed here. A couple of things. We had posted a video, and actually I have a little bit more coming on it, but it was the argument for why you need to pick up an FN57 as a military surplus gun, because the thing is, when they're gone, this gun's going to disappear. To me, it's the last of the true Cold War kind of project guns. Again, I'm not going to rehash the video. You can see the video on the website and on YouTube if you want, or Vimeo or wherever. It's fine. And it wasn't but 2 weeks later, FN announces that they are shutting down the SCAR 16S program, the SCAR 17S program, and the SCAR 20S programs. They have also, I've seen conflicting reports that they have also shut down all production in the US-based plant and possibly a Belgian-based plant. They are still apparently making or supporting a gun called the 15P, which is basically the SCAR 16 in pistol form. I was looking at one in I'm not going to say where. I was looking at one of those last week, oddly enough. I have pictures of it even. I took pictures of it. I'll publish it. And it's a SCAR 16 pistol with a 10-inch barrel. I think it's a 10-inch barrel. I think it has a non-reciprocating charging handle. It doesn't have a buttstock on it. And I think it's interesting for a couple reasons. One, the SCAR program has been around for a while. Number two, the SCAR program is actually going to start running to the point where the patents on some of the technology are going to expire, and it's going to be you're going to be able to clone the guns. Nobody is saying that, and in the analysis that you're seeing in all the gun communities. But again, as a business person, I'm telling you, it's absolutely a fucking possibility. And the sales could be so small and so insignificant that FN's like, why this gun's not going to be the next big thing. We're going to shut it down, like like History of Weapons and War, and we're going to move on to something else, right? So there's that. But also, I think it's interesting. They are claiming that that they're still going to be supporting their military customers, and I think, and so it was like, but then they're still making the 15P or supporting the 15P. And I'm looking at this. I don't quite have it worked out in my mind, but I'm starting to realize logistically that what they're really describing to you is the SCAR 16S, 17S, and 20S are all guns that are realistically made for the American civilian market. And they've got parts on them that are really only purchased by American civilians. 16-inch barrels, 18-inch and 20-inch barrels. Whereas the 15P is a 10-inch barrel. Like my understanding, if I remember correctly, the original SCAR rifle, there could have been I think there was a 14-inch version, like there's a 14-inch M4. But I think a lot of that gun, originally they were thinking it was going to have a 10-inch barrel because you're going to stick a suppressor on it, which is odd because it's like, supposedly you can't put FN won't warranty a SCAR with a suppressor on it, which, whatever. We all know that's no one gives a fuck. But it seems to me that the reason the 15P is still around is because it's basically using parts for the military gun. So they're already kind of making the parts, at least for a while. I will admit that it's been on the back burner for a while, but I've been wanting to chop down and make some changes to my SCAR 16 that I have, that you guys really haven't seen it much lately. I wanted to put a shorter barrel on it or have the barrel chopped down. And I even thought about maybe putting the non-reciprocating charging handle on it, SBRing the gun and doing all of that. I did go look, and as soon as they announced, as soon as they announced that the SCAR program is getting shut down, I had found a 10-inch factory new SCAR 16 barrel on Gunbroker, and I was like, well, I got to go pick up that Grenadier today. So I call an Uber, and Uber comes, takes me up to get the Grenadier, and then I come back to the office, and I go to get on the internet to buy that 10-inch barrel, and it's gone. They took the ad down, so I guess someone bought it, or they figured they could sell it for more, and they took the ad down. So like I can't find any barrels, and it's like, well, it's not that big of a deal. I'm sure I could just have it chopped. I really wanted to have maybe a factory barrel, but it's they're chrome lined, I think, and it's not like it's a precision rifle, and if it kind of gets a little bunged up there where they cut right the chrome is, it's not that big of a deal. So, or maybe instead of chasing all this, and because I only have one scar, maybe just buy a 15p and SBR, put a stock on it, be done with it, because it's kind of what I wanted to turn the scar 16 into. It's like, well shit, why should I do all this? It's probably going to be more money in a way, but it's going to be set up right. The gas system's going to work. You don't have to have the gas jets or whatever, the things that you have to buy to get the 16s to work when you cut them short. There's all kinds of things out there. So I don't know what I'm going to do. But what it does tell me is that, FN's in business to make money, and the SCAR program isn't making money. And there's only so much bandwidth. There's only so much bandwidth in the manufacturing processes, to build X amount of things at any given time. And so if stuff is selling and you have lines and you have machine time, or however they break it up, if something better comes along that has potential to make a lot more money, the lowest hanging fruit that's taking up machine time in those factories are going to get chopped. SCAR 16's already done. Like, pretty much. They're going to keep some little shorty 15p that they'll use for the military stuff. That's really what that is. The FN57 is probably not too far behind. The only reason why I would think they would keep that is a lot of these companies, when they're approaching law enforcement or military customers, they like to provide a full service solution. So here's your tactical rifle, here's your service handgun, and here is your shotgun, or here is your precision rifle, or your breaching gun, or whatever you want to do. They like to offer more than just one thing. It's like, oh, for and we can get 3 for the price of 4. That's kind of how bureaucracies work. And so maybe FN, we'll see. Maybe they see a future for the 5.7, or maybe they think that the 509 is the future, or maybe they'll shut down the 509. Because I'll tell you what, FN is definitely notorious for making a handgun and then being like, they give it about 8 years, and they're like, shut that off. We're going to make a whole new handgun. And they're not really supporting them anymore. There's been a couple law enforcement agencies that have been burned by that. So we've already seen the SCAR get whacked. Some of you FN pistol guys, you better watch out, because FN's on the hunt. And what are they hunting for? Well, apparently FN, how do I say this? The Sig Sauer is in trouble. There's obviously trouble there. There's not only trouble with SIG and the P320, there's trouble with the M7 rifle. You can tell that there's problems. I'm not going to go into the reports of soldiers running exercises and running out of ammo with the M7, because they're used to carrying 280 rounds as opposed to, was that 140 or something, whatever they're supposed to be carrying. Because it's a bigger gun, and the ammo's heavier and all this kind of stuff too, right? So, and then SIG just recently came out with an M7. It's not adopted by the military, but they came out with an M7 that is supposedly about 2 pounds lighter than the original M7. It's like, well, why would they do that? Well, it's a product improvement. Well, they're still trying to kind of get this program adopted. And that tells me, it's not throughout the entire force. I think the 101st Airborne has the M7. they're playing with them, maybe 82nd. I don't know. I'm pretty certain the 101st down south of us in Tennessee has them. That's maybe Rangers. I don't know, but I'm pretty certain the 101st has some of these guns because I've seen reports from the DoD on it. I'm not saying that they're running them all the time. I'm not saying it's the standard issue. I'm just saying they've got a bunch of them, like a lot of them to do stuff with it, right? So, and then SIG is coming out with a lighter rifle. There's some not just talking on in the gun community. There's some bitching inside of the Department of War. The new name now, the new old name. There's some bitching. There's some problems, and it's like SIG's like, we're going to shave 2 pounds off this gun. It's like, that's great. I think that's admirable, but it's, and part of me is like, we were going to buy an M7, maybe just get it in 308. Just because I was like, well, if this is going to be the rifle, we better get one now. And then I saw the 2 pound version, the 2 pound lighter version came out, and I was like, fuck, we're going to wait. So we're not going to buy it because it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. Which one, if the lighter gun, and look from my perspective, from a reference gun, if the lighter gun's going to end up being the gun, and it's going to end up being the gun, why would I want the heavier gun? Well, here's the problem. If the lighter gun's going to end up being the gun, the only way it's going to end up being the gun, if they've made it lighter, the whole thing's going to have to be tested and retested. And like, how durable is it? Is it going to hold up? Can it take where'd that 2 pounds come from? Yeah, okay, you can get rid of a folding stock mechanism. Okay, sure, but that's not 2 pounds. This program, there's obviously some jaw jacking going on over there inside where it counts as opposed to on the gun forum, that there's some shit going on here. And maybe it isn't all sweetness and light with this gun. And so, speaking of being on the hunt to close down the SCAR program, this was announced. This is the week I was traveling, and I saw this. FN has a gun. It basically looks like an AR-15. I don't know if it's DI or piston. It's probably piston. I just saw the blurb and I skimmed it, and I was literally in an airport and getting on an airplane. I saw this, and it's called the LICC. I have to look up, but it's the Individual Weapon Systems, the LICC-IWS. And this is apparently a small program that's being run out of the best way I can describe it, because I don't remember the actual name, but it's basically like a special operations weapons research group for the Army. Like, it's like maybe I could be wrong, but it's like a SOCOM adjacent technology group, and they've apparently been put some kind of RFP out or working with FN or other people, and they've got a gun. So it's the LICC gun program, and it's like the light intermediate caliber cartridge. That's what it is, as I've just remembered it. LICC, light intermediate caliber cartridge. Kind of redundant. IWS is the individual weapons system, which is the rifle for the infantrymen, and then there's like some kind of belt-fed whatever weapon that is the LICC whatever, like the 249 saw. It's not the saw, but it's like their belt-fed, it's their machine gunner, for the squad, right? So, but apparently, and this is where this is really interesting. This is made by FN. It looks kind of like an AR, might just be a little bit bigger. It is chambered in a caliber called 6.5, and you're like, oh, 6.5 Creedmoor. No, that's an AR-10. Oh, 6.5 Grendel. Nope, that's whatever. Oh, 6.5 Yo Mama. No, it's in something called 6.5 by 45. And if that sounds familiar, you might know that the designation for 5.56.223 is 5.56 by 45. So this is a 6.5 caliber bullet in a case that's the same length as a 5.56. So it's probably a 5.56 case. Probably. I don't know this for certain. And apparently the case is bimetal. or not bimetal. The case is, where like part of the case, well, instead of it being, is it steel? And then it's not brass and steel, but I think it's a steel case, but I think it even has the bottom of the case is even like an alloy. So, where the 277 Fury 6.8 by 51 round for the M7 program uses this super hard base so they can get these crazy pressures. Well, FN's apparently, I don't know who's making the ammo, possibly FN, but they're basically doing the same thing with that technology, but in a gun that's more appropriate, more sized for an AR-15. So now you're possibly back to having the standard loadouts with the same amount of magazines with the 6.5 by 45 ammo. The M7 is in big ass fucking trouble because the SCAR's in trouble, and FN is probably, they've got a native stocking number on this gun. It is definitely being tested, and with all the issues going on with SIG, and then all the issues going on with this gun, and then issues with the weight and the recoil and the ammo capacity of the individual soldier. I think there's an argument to be made that maybe they should relook at this, and instead of making a gun by committee, you find some people with some strong opinions and you just build the fucking gun you want and fuck everybody else, and maybe it'll be adopted. And because just remember, the AR-15 wasn't invented by the Army, it was invented by a person with an opinion. And it's entirely possible that this is what's going to kill the 6.8. And it could be interesting. Imagine a AR-15 with, I don't know, like 20-inch barrel, 18-inch barrel. I mean, with this 6.5 bimetal, I'm calling it bimetal, two-piece case, you're back to possibly having a 10-inch barrel or 13-inch barrel with a 3,000, foot, FPS with some crazy armor-piercing round that'll penetrate Chinese body armor, because that's what they're all worried about. They want the range, and they're worried about the body armor. And in a gun that's the size of an M4, and maybe it kicks a little bit more than an M4, but it's not going to kick like it's not going to kick like this 6.8 in basically a 308 size case. So I think that is directly related to the SCAR program. FN's not made of money. These companies, there's a lot going on there with that. In other news, I thought was interesting. This came up, I guess, later in the summer or earlier this year. And then I guess now there's been some movement by Ruger, because this may not be a friendly maneuver. Beretta has purchased 9% of Ruger. And you're like, how's that happen? Well, Ruger is a publicly traded company. So it has come out that Beretta Holding, because Beretta is a conglomerate that owns all kinds of companies. Beretta owns Benelli. Beretta owns Tika. Beretta owns all kinds of stuff. Beretta owns Steiner. They bought Steiner just a couple years ago. So they have all this stuff, right? Beretta Holdings has acquired 1.2 million shares of Ruger common stock for roughly $46 million. When was this reported? This was, since it didn't grab the date. Ruger acquired 1.2 million shares of Ruger common stock, that you can buy because it's on the stock exchange, for $46 million, nearly 7.8% of the firm's outstanding shares. The SEC filing states the current move is an effort to increase strategic collaboration between legendary gun makers. Yeah, okay, that's cool. When the market saw that, Ruger shares went up because the market's like, something's going on here. Like, like, why would they do that? So, well, apparently, Ruger hit a 52-week high, and then apparently the Ruger board decided to go into a poison pill, a poison pill strategy to fend off a possible, what appears to be, fend off Beretta from basically buying up all their stock and taking over the company. And Beretta could do that a couple ways. They don't have to buy the company and take them private. They could simply buy enough shares of the company that they could demand board seats and taking over how the company is run, or having a big effect on how the company is run, and ultimately, lead over to taking over the company. So there's something going on with Beretta and Ruger. I don't know any more than, as of a couple days ago, but I did hear that Ruger has initiated a poison pill strategy, which in effect, which basically damaged Beretta's financial position that they have. It's something, a poison pill strategy is something that they do to dilute the value of a potential and hostile takeover to try to make them spend more money. That definitely tells me that this is not a friendly situation. So I've also heard rumors that Beretta and Ruger are now talking or have been talking. So it's more than just buying the stock. They talking. So I don't know what's going on, but I think it would be interesting. But it's kind of how it is. Like, I know for a fact that when Ruger bought Anderson, that they were kicking them a little bit because, there was some room to kick. So, if Beretta is going to make a run at Ruger, I'm sure they're going to kick him too. So, we'll definitely have to follow up on this one. Okay, I promised you we'd go faster, and we're really going to be stepping on the gas now because I got my appointment in the morning. So there was a report, I think it came out of Texas. I don't know I checked before we went live, and I haven't seen any updates on it on appeals. I expect there would be, but apparently I think it was a federal judge in Texas has ruled that the USPS ban on guns the post office, the ban on guns in postal facilities is unconstitutional. And I think on its face, it's fair to assume that I think it is unconstitutional, because also you're even getting in a situation where FFLs can go into the post office and with guns. And let's just be real, you guys can hang me. I've been carrying guns in post offices for close to 40 years now. So, I've had meetings in postal facilities with postal inspectors where I'm carrying a gun, he's carrying a gun, he doesn't know I'm carrying a gun, where he's pretending he doesn't know I'm carrying a gun, and I pretend he doesn't know I'm carrying a gun, and we all just pretend that everything's fine. So, yeah, here's another fun fact. I actually had to pull a gun on somebody once at a postal facility. Beyond that, I'm not going to actually, I'm not going to give you any specifics, but yeah, I'm perfectly defensible in court. Very defensible, very. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting story, and just to move a small move in the right direction, and worth sharing to the listener. So now we're just getting to a little bit of the physical and metaphysical here, and I'm going to leave it up to the listener to determine which is which. So I thought it was an interesting story out of North Korea, and it's anything that comes out of North Korea, I'll tell you what, one of my favorite, I can't do it all the time because it's kind of like a knock-knock joke. It gets to be old, but a good knock-knock joke every once in a while when you haven't heard one in a while is worth listening to. And one of my favorite things is watching the North Korean news person read the news. It's a sight to behold, because it's like this emotive, I wish I spoke North Korean just to hear what they say. Oh, the dear leader, they got the missile in the air, and whatever. So anyway, North Korea has apparently, in their eternal battle against the running dogs of capitalism, have banned boob jobs. So, I don't know. Did they have boob jobs in Russia and in the Soviet Union? I don't know. But apparently they must have boob jobs in North Korea because they banned them. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. I don't know. That's almost should qualify as its own, my favorite headline: North Korea bans boob jobs. So, another one which I thought was worth mentioning. So there is apparently, and I haven't run this one down, so it could end up being kind of fake, but it was too good to check. And hey, look, if NBC can run too good to check all the time, I can run a too good to check at least this one time. There was apparently a Hopi Indian prophecy, and I don't know if this is passed on in verbal tradition or if it's carved in the side of a cave. I have no idea. But apparently, there's some prophecy of a great leader that wears a red hat that comes and changes the world. And now a bunch of people are starting to look through the lens of modern politics and wonder if the dude in the red hat is in the Hopi prophecy. And, I just think it's great. So, um, in other news, considering, I think DPRK and California should get together and maybe exchange leaders, because California has decided that there was a proposed law in California that has been put into the, basically there's a procedure where they move it into, they call it like the dead, they don't call it the dead file, but basically there's a bill, it ends up in this committee. Instead of voting on it and pushing it out of the committee, they put it into this file where it's basically a dead end. And so California has killed what was known as Leno's Law. And basically any car made before 1981, so a 1980 or earlier car, would be exempt from California smog. So, these hippies want to make everything worse and worse and worse. There's no exemptions for anything. And so not only are they fucking up the farmers, they're fucking up all the heavy equipment, they're fucking up all the tractors and all this DEF and DPF and all this stuff. They can't even leave the Duesenbergers alone. And it's like, okay, assholes, I can't wait until the Trump administration and they finally figured out a way and they ram through some of this stuff to get rid of all these emissions. I mean, this is just crazy. You can't even give the collectors, so like James Dean's hot rod from 1950, whenever James Dean was alive, has to pass smog. Like, get the fuck out of here, you assholes. I mean, it's just like, it's bonkers. So, all right, let's get to the police blotter, and we're going to go ahead and toss this one. So first one is in California. I think, was it Bakersfield? I have to look this one up. There'll be a link to this on the police blotter. The California Police Department has seized a Jap Type 99 machine gun. And it's like, oh, well, that's too bad, because they're probably going to end up, maybe not be a machine gun, maybe it's a semi-auto that is converted. I don't know if you can convert those, but I'm sure it's some sad story. I don't think some gangbanger has this Type 99. I think it's probably something that, where now they're going to end up destroying it. It's a piece of history and whatever. The second thing is a story out of Paris and the Louvre, and then there was a heist. I guess there's been a robbery, stealing, a bunch of jewels and crowns and stuff from like the third floor or whatever of the Louvre. I've been to the Louvre, but I probably didn't go into that room. And I thought this was worth mentioning for a couple. One, it's like Ocean's 11 over there. Number two, it's probably Eastern Europeans, but you never know. I mean, this could just be a stereotype. Number three, I thought this was a good example to prove a point about some of the stuff you heard on 9/11. And you're asking yourself, what the hell does the heist of the Louvre have to do with 9/11? Very simple. First reports are almost always wrong. And if the first report was wrong, it's not a conspiracy. And here's what it is. I first heard about this heist, a reference on the wire services and blotter services this morning. And it was reported as the following: that somebody, like on the third floor, grabbed like Napoleon's wife's crown, like whatever her name was, Sophie or whatever her name was, went over to a window and threw it out a window to maybe somebody down on the ground, or smashed a window and got out of a window with it. It was first reported as, did something up on one of these floors, was able to get to a window and smashed it and threw it out the window. And then maybe there were people, you were inferred from it going out the window that maybe there was somebody waiting and they got it and they got away with it. Well, then it comes out, it's like, well, no, then it's like, well, there's this people with this big construction crane or this big ladder, and then they went up, and then it's, they're running around through, through the window, and there's a bunch of them, and possibly they're smashing all these things, and then there's security guards who are evacuating the building, and then the thieves are taking it out the crane down this ladder truck or some kind of crazy thing, because they're really not construction workers. They're Ocean's France 11, like France 11, I don't know. And, so it's like more and more facts come out. Well, it wasn't a conspiracy. It's not like, we heard it was, 30 planes, or we heard it was this, we heard it was that. It's just first reports are almost always wrong. And I thought the Louvre heist was a good way. Look to the reports when you hear this on Monday. Look to the very early reports if they haven't been rewritten, or look into the time machines where you can see how stuff was originally written, and you will see the first reports of what happened with the heist at the museum in France were nothing like what ended up ultimately looks like it's happened. It's not a conspiracy. It's just stuff's happening so quickly. People they know a little bit, they tell someone else, they tell a news service, it gets reported. They don't know, they don't have a full situational awareness as to what's going on, within, a quarter mile of them or up 3 floors or whatever. So just keep that in mind. And the final thing, and I thought this was worth mentioning because it's the first time in my life that I have heard somebody actually getting convicted and going to jail on this. And this is something that, again, I'm a person of a certain age, 54. And one of the things when I was young is they would talk about, like, there would be things that people thought were true that weren't really true, like when we were kids. Like, the idea of, like, you're in a car chase and the police you can't cross state lines. Like, if you just make it the state line, Dukes of Hazzard, to get across the county line, they can't get you to the next county. Well, then, things change, or you learn as you get older. There's things like hot pursuit, right? Well, one of the things that I always heard growing up was the idea of the Mann Act. And it's like, oh, you're doing this, and, like, I guess it's with kidnapping or girls or forcing people, and you're crossing state lines, and the FBI has got to get involved because it's multi-state jurisdiction. It's going to be the feds, and they're going to lock you up on the Mann Act. They're going to get that guy on the Mann Act. And I've never actually heard of anybody getting jammed up on the Mann Act until now. Diddy, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, J-Lo's boy toy at one point, has been all the stuff that he was charged on, and he went through a trial. He was found guilty on violating the Mann Act of all the stuff, like all the other things, all of that he was acquitted or found not guilty, okay? But he was found guilty for violating the Mann Act, which was, I believe, is transporting women across state lines for sex. But I guess sex for money. So I guess maybe it's prostitution across state lines, if I can recall. But I remember as a kid, the Mann Act was like a big deal. The Mann Act. Apparently he's been convicted, and he's going to get 50 months for violating the Mann Act. So finally, at 54 years of age, I can finally check that off my list of, like, how does that work? So apparently that's how it works. If you're Diddy and you running hookers across state lines, you can get convicted of the Mann Act. Well, this wraps up episode 385 of the John1911 Podcast. You want to see any more stories or pictures, links, stuff we talked about? Please go to the website at john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good night.